today. The teaching that we're going to deal with is, I'm not going to hold you long on this one, because I want to be cognizant. I want the brothers to not be as long today and on the streets. I want them to get home and get some rest. So if you will please make a note of this particular teaching that we're going to be dealing with. It is called Mission Impossible. And then there is, that's in quotation, Mission Impossible. And here is the continuance of the title, For Edom to Understand the Scriptures. Mission Impossible, quotation marks. For Edom to understand the Scriptures. It is impossible for Edom to understand the Scriptures because it was never given to them. And sometimes we allow some of the teaching and the ideologies and the theology of many of the nations to corrupt our thinking, to think that this book is for everyone. I'm going to open with a very common verse that we use pretty much every single time we're out on the street, which is from the book of Psalms. Let's go to Psalms 147. And we're going to begin, if you please. We normally use 19 and 20. We're going to begin at 18, just so that we can put a little bit more meat on the bones. Let's read.
Psalms chapter 147 and verse 18. He sendeth out his word and melted them.
Sorry, read it again.
He sendeth out his word and melted them.
He sendeth out his word and he melted them. Read.
He causeth his wind to blow and the waters flow.
He causes the wind to blow and the waters to flow. Meaning, in other words, his word is going to reach. When something is melted, it doesn't remain in one place. If a block is there, it stays in one place. But when it's melted, it begins to spread. That's right. So his word is going to spread. Now, the spreading is not for every nation. It's only for his people who are in every nation. Right. On yesterday, we had somebody who came up and he was giving us a hard time saying, well, look, the churches of Ephesus, the churches of Galatia and Romans and so on. And I said, well, first of all, notice what it said. The churches, not the people, not the nation. That's right. Because we who were in those countries had churches in those areas. And the churches that we had in those areas is to whom Paul was sending much of his epistles to. He was not sending it to the nation because Paul did not care for the nations. He cared for his people. Because that's why he says in one particular scriptures, he's, where is it? Where he said that, let's hold that. I think it's in, where he said, I would gladly make myself some for my brethren. Say again?
My brethren, my kinsmen.
Yeah, I believe it's that one. Just call it and read it so we can see if it is.
For I wish that myself were cursed.
Yeah, that's it.
Romans 9:3.
Yeah, let's go ahead and read.
Romans 9:3. Yes.
Yeah.
Romans chapter 9 verse 3. For I could wish that myself were accursed from the Mashiach for my brethren, my kinsmen.
My what?
My kinsmen, according to the flesh.
According to the flesh. And then he goes on to the next verse to say, go ahead.
Who are Israelites.
Who are Israelites. So he's making it very clear as to who it was in his flesh. And it's to those who are the Israelites he was speaking about. No one else. So why people find it so hard, and it's like we are almost bent on trying to make sure other nations are in this. If the Most High doesn't care for the other nations, why are you? Let's go back to Psalms, officer. Let's continue from 19. In fact, we'll read 18 again, go right through to 19.
Psalms chapter 147 and verse 18. He sendeth out his word, and melteth them. He causeth his wind to blow, and the waters flow. He showeth his word unto Jacob.
You showeth his word what?
Unto Jacob.
To Jacob, read.
His statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He hath not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them.
They have not what?
Known them.
Read.
Praise ye the Lord.
Praise ye the Most High Lord. Now, go to Psalms chapter 50 and 16. In fact, call upon me in the day of trouble. Start at 15.
Psalms chapter 50 and verse 15. And call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me.
We will glorify him. Read on.
But unto the wicked.
But unto the other nations, read.
God saith, what hast thou to do to declare my statutes?
See, you can't pick up his book or his statutes and speak anything about it. Read on.
Or that thou shouldest take my covenant in thy mouth, seeing thou hatest instruction.
See, you hate instructions. You don't like to get teaching. You don't want anyone to tell you the way that the scriptures is. Continue.
And casted my words behind thee.
There it is. In fact, I'm going to come back here later, but go ahead, read it whilst we're there. 18.
Verse 18. When thou sawest a thief, then thou consentest with him, and hast been partaker with adulterers.
In other words, they will do what a thief does. They will do what an adulterer does, because they are complicit in the same crime. So from here, we begin to see that this is something that the other nations cannot get. Edom cannot deal with this. We read this morning, where did we read? We read in Romans chapter 4, and we read this. Something comes to mind. Verse 14.
Romans chapter 4 and verse 14. For if they which are of law be heirs, faith is made void, and the promise made of none effect.
The promise is what?
Made of none effect.
Read on.
Because the law worketh wrath, for where no law is, there is no transgression.
So if there's no law, there's no sin. So that means if they don't have this law, they can't sin. They're doing what they've been naturally made to do, which is to be disruptive. It's in their nature to do this. There is no law upon them. So whatever they do, it's not sin. But, oh, I've sinned. You can't sin, brah. You can't sin, sister. What you do is just what you do. You are made for destruction. Now that's a hard pill to swallow. Same lady last night told us, why don't we show her some love, she and her daughter. We can't show you love when you've had us in 500 years of slavery, and now all of a sudden you want us to show you love. How about the other way around? So this is the situation that we're faced with in life, and we're always going to be under this continual condemnation. Now, to begin the lesson, mission impossible for Edom to understand the scriptures. I would like to see if you, officer, if you can see if you can pull up some newsreel based upon the recent actions that Trump has made because he wants a military space force.
Oh, yes.
Because I'm going to deal with I'm going to kill two birds with one stone with this. I had an email from someone who, again, and I constantly keep getting this, from those of you, and I know you're Edom, and those of you who are of Jake, and you want me to be more subtle and supportive. They said I'm just too harsh. Well, what you have to understand here, to those of you who are my Jacob brethren, let me say this. I cannot be any more supportive of Edom than what Yahweh is going to be. Yahweh has made up his mind he's going to destroy them. And so, for me then to start to become all lovey-dovey with them would mean then I'm going against his word, and I'm not going to do that. So let me just make that real kind of clear. Does it mean that I won't be polite to them? I'll be polite. When we're out, we're always polite. But we're not going to all of a sudden bend down on our knees and start to lick boots, because those days are clearly over. The second thing is with Trump. You have to know and realize at this time that Trump is ordained by the Father to be in his position. You have to know that by now. You cannot be that naive that you're seeing all of these things take place, and this man that has ran many times before didn't make it, but this time the Lord chose for this season for him to be in place, because he has the right spirit to do what he needs to do to set things in order for when he's about to come make his appearance. So what we're going to look at, one of you have just let me know, officer, we're going to do with Trump's directive that he gave to the Pentagon to say, I want you to create a military space force as a first defense system. All right, let's see what we've got.
Yeah, it's a lot of parodies. They're not, I know you just want the speech, right?
Yes, or anything that's leading up to it. If we've got anything that's good.
Yeah, it's a lot of just newsreels about it.
All right. Well, what about
the first new branch of the armed services since the Air Force was created in 1947. Supporters of the president's plan say the Air Force doesn't give space the attention or money it needs. David Martin looks at what it would mean to have a space force.
The Air Force plans to conduct 50 space launches this year and already operates 77 satellites on orbit.
Wow.
Including these GPS satellites, which guide everything from high-tech weapons to everyday drivers. Nearly 40,000 Air Force men and women are currently assigned to space. But President Trump has told the Pentagon to set up a new branch of the armed services just for space.
We are going to have the Air Force, and we are going to have the Space Force.
The American way of war depends on space, which is why potential adversaries like Russia and China have developed anti-satellite weapons, a threat brought home in 2007 when China created this vast debris field by shooting down one of its own weather satellites. General John Hyten, the overall commander of U.S. Space Forces, spoke with 60 Minutes in 2015.
It was a significant wake-up call to our entire military. Until that singular event, I don't think the broader military realized that that is something we're going to have to worry about.
Doug Rivero is the former head of space policy for the Pentagon.
It's not that the Air Force has done a bad job, but to bring it further, to bring it to where we need to get to, we really need service focused on it.
Less than a year ago, Defense Secretary Mattis wrote this letter saying, I do not wish to add a separate service for space. But now his commander-in-chief has spoken, although Congress will have the final say. For CBS This Morning, David Martin at the Pentagon.
All right. Now, let's elaborate on that, because I've been trying to listen to some of the other chatter that's been going on. Remember what they said, that until they saw what China did in terms of sending up some kind of ballistic intercontinental missile that operated outside of the Earth, they were shocked, because they didn't know they had that type of sophistication. And they used it to destroy one of their own satellites, because they did not want the information that was on that satellite to get into anyone else's hands. But this is what it caused America to realize, that if they have the pinpoint precision that they can take out a satellite like that, it means then that they have the capability that if they wanted to knock out one of the communication systems of America, they could easily do that.
Yes.
So that for the first time they realize we're vulnerable in this area. And the only way that they can get around this is to say, all right, we need to have a space force, and that's the purpose behind it. So the other is this, and this is what they were saying, that they would have a rotational military force that would go up, and they can drop that military force down in any country at any time at a moment's call. So it goes to show that Trump is putting some things together in this great end time puzzle of what the Most High is going to do. Go to Revelations for me, chapter 12 and 7. Revelations chapter 12 and 7. And when you have it, let's read.
Revelations chapter 12 and verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels.
So notice what it's telling us. It said there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels. Just to touch that a little bit. Still stay here, but go to 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and 2. Just to add something to that.
2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 2. I knew a man in Al-Mashiach above 14 years ago, whether in the body I cannot tell,
Read.
or whether out of the body I cannot tell. Yah knoweth, such an one caught up to the third heaven.
So there are things that he was exposed to, that he saw, but it was not on the Most High's agenda to have him say certain things. So this man was Paul. It was not his intention for Paul to reveal anything at this point, but he wanted Paul to see it because there's a bigger picture at play here. But the person that he wanted to reveal all of this was John. They called him John the Divine. So John now, later on, he pens this back in Revelation chapter 12 and verse 7. And he said, and there was war in heaven. There is a colon there. It's not a maybe. It's not a think about situation. It is something that is going to happen. Now, it's going to happen to such a degree that many of us will see it. Well, how will we see it? Some of us will be still here on earth experiencing some of the things, because some of us, and by the way, incidentally, for those of us who are of the elect, he's going to let some of us elect individual go through this turbulent time of this war period when it happens. And the reason why he let us go through is because even though we are of the elect, he wants to humble us down, because some of us, we're too high-minded. Too high-minded. We need to be brought down a few pegs. Oh, well, I'm of the elect. Yeah, we'll see. And so he wants to put you in a position that you're going to be in a situation where you're going to turn around and you're going to call on his name. That's why I listened very close to what you were saying earlier on about his name. You have to know his name, because in that day you're going to have to call on his name, because you're going to be in trouble. And when you see the calamity and the catastrophic disaster taking place around you, you're going to have to be in a situation where you're going to say, Father, if you just get me out of this, it's going to happen. Now, there are others who may not be on the earth when this happened, but may be on their way back with Yahweh Shai in the chariots, and will witness it from a different armchair position. But others, and remember, we're still dealing with the elect. And what I'm trying to get you to understand is that the elect, yes, you're going to be spared, and yes, you're going to be saved. But here is the thing. Some of the elect still is going to go through some things, because we are still too high-minded. We haven't humbled up yet. So it's going to allow some of us to see this tragedy, and it's going to bring fear into us. And then it says, Michael and his angels. And it goes on to say, fought against the dragon. Who is this dragon? Go, if you please, to 2 Ezra chapter 15 and 29, and let's read that. 2 Ezra chapter, what did I say?
15:29.
Good. All right, let's read.
2 Ezra chapter 15 and verse 29. Where the nations of the dragons of Arabia
Read.
shall come out with many chariots, and the multitude of them shall be carried as the wind upon earth, that all they which hear them may fear and tremble.
See that? So they're going to, and by the way, we'll put more emphasis on it later because we're going to come back to it. When they see Yahushua and his troops coming, glory be to his matchless name, fear will come over them, that they will be petrified. But here is the thing that you read into the scriptures. I never saw it before until just the other night. The Father is going to make them, even though they're scared, he's going to make them fight. And to make them fight then means to find themselves endangered or destroyed to their own peril. And he's going to do that because he has to bring the vengeance of his wrath upon them. How is it that we were never taught this in Christianity? How? How did we spend so many years in that thing and not know this? Forgive my passion. I feel very stirred. All right. From here, let's go to Habakkuk chapter 2. We're going to come back to Revelations, but let's go to Habakkuk chapter 2. And let's begin at verse 4.
Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith.
Read it again, please.
Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith.
The just shall live by faith. Hold up for a minute. Run to Hebrews chapter 10. That I don't have down in my notes. So 10. Hebrews chapter 10. I think it's 8, but Hebrews chapter 10. If you have it, I'll see when I find it. Yeah. Begin at verse. Begin at what is that still prepared for me? Begin at verse. Before those come at the well, says something. All right. Begin at verse 6.
Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 6. And burnt offerings and sacrifices for sin thou hast had no pleasure. Then said I, Lo, I come in the volume of the book. It is written of me to do thy will, O God. Above when he said, sacrifice and offering and burnt offerings, and offering for sin thou wouldest not, neither has pleasure therein, which are offered by the law.
By the law. Now jump to verse 38.
Verse 38. Now the just shall live by faith.
There it is. In fact, jump back up to 37 for me, please.
Hebrews chapter 10 and verse 37. For yet a little while, and he shall come, will come, and will not tarry.
See, so he's going to come. This is just a little while, just tarrying just a little while. Because the word tarry simply means to wait. So to tarry, and he says, for yet a little while, just tarry a little bit longer. And he that shall come will come. He's going to come. And when he comes, he's not going to, we have an expression back home, he's not going to hang about. He's going to come, and he's going to come right into doing business. Read on, sir.
Verse 38. Now the just shall live by faith, but if any man draw back, my soul shall have no pleasure in him.
There it is. And you see, he has to do this because he's making sure who says he's there with him, you've got to be sure you're with him.
That's right.
This is not time for messing around. You've got to know you're with him. Read on, sir.
But we are not of them who draw back.
That's it. That's it. Was it the Christian would say, look at your neighbor and say, we are not of them who draw back. I am not of any that's drawing back. I'm not going back for nobody. Read on.
But we are not of them who draw back unto perdition, but of them that believe to the saving of the soul.
To the saving of the soul. Let's go back now to Habakkuk.
Habakkuk chapter 2 and verse 4. Behold, his soul which is lifted up is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. Yea, also, because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire is hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied.
Notice, it says that he's proud. It says that he won't keep himself at home, and he enlarges his desire as hell, and is as death. That's what he is. Read on, sir.
And cannot be satisfied.
Cannot be satisfied. In other words, he has a bottomless pit for a stomach. Read on.
But gather unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people.
Now, which country gathers unto themselves all nations? Which country on earth right now that has every nation coming in unto them? There's only one.
That's right.
And that's Babylon.
That's right.
The United States of America. Everybody's welcome here. Read on.
Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his.
See, woe unto him who increaseth with things that are not his. They were never his in the first place. All he knows to do, this devil, is to go and take and take and take. Read.
How long? And to him that layeth himself with thick clay. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee.
Now let me explain something, because we went through it quite quickly, and I think you need to know. It uses the word here, he said, back in verse 6, latter clause, and to him that letteth himself with thick clay. That's really pointing out the fact that he has made so many pledges. And this country has made so many pledges and treaties with countries, but it's never kept them.
That's right. That's right.
And that's what that means, thick clay. Always making an agreement, but it's only to get me in the door, but I'm never going to follow through on it. Read on. In fact, read 7 again.
Verse 7. Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee?
See, so, and once he gets in there, then he's going to bite you, and because he's a serpent, he's going to poison you. You see the significance here? I don't want you to miss this. And then it says,
and a way that shall vex thee,
and in a way that's going to vex you. Read.
And thou shalt be for booties unto them.
In other words, the word booty means treasures, spoils. So he's going to make you the thing that he's going to use to bring him more profit in the future. And we are so naive, we go with our faces grinning to this devil.
That's right.
Read on, sir, verse 8.
Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people.
Stop. He says he has done what?
Because thou hast spoiled many nations.
He has spoiled many nations. Many nations he has spoiled. Not some of the nations, but many nations. Now, do you think anyone can get away with this type of crime? No. But read on.
All the remnant of the people shall spoil thee.
All the remnant of the people are going to spoil. Meaning, there's a day coming that there's going to be, according to the scripture, a just recompense of reward. In other words, it's called payback.
Yes, sir.
This country is going to get a colossal payback that the Most High says that once he is done, it will be inhabitable. Nothing will be able to live here ever again, because he's going to make this land a curse for thousands, if not millions of years. Read on.
Because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein.
Read.
Woe to him that covereth.
See, woe unto him that covereth. Remember, just like the scripture tells us that the angel, which is Satan, he's the angel that covereth. Meaning he's always hiding something. He has hidden us from the truth of who we are for hundreds of years. The Bible says where he's hidden ones in the book of Psalms 83 and 3, I believe it is.
Yes, sir.
And there, many of our children, even our fathers before us and they didn't know who they were. Read it from the top again.
Woe to him that coveteth and evil covetousness in his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil.
Now you need to underline the word set his nest on high. You need to underline the word set his nest on high. This, believe it or not, that word nest has a greater meaning than what meets the eye. But we'll get to that in a moment. I don't want to jump the gun too much. But let's go now to Habakkuk 3 and 16.
Habakkuk chapter 3 and verse 16. When I heard, my belly trembled, my lips quivered at the voice. Rottenness entered into my bones, and I trembled in myself, that I might rest in the day of trouble. When he cometh up unto the people, he will invade them with his truth.
See that? That right there is a prophecy from Habakkuk, who is saying that the Most High is going to come to invade this earth. And it says, the latter clause says, he will invade them with his troops. This is Yahweh Shai. He's going to invade them. We'll visit that again in just a moment. Let's go from here now to Daniel chapter 12. And let's begin at verse 9. Daniel chapter 12 and verse 9.
Daniel chapter 12 and verse 9. And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end.
Well, now, we need to look at that. This that you're reading right there again, read it again slowly for me, please, officer.
And he said, Go thy way, Daniel.
Go thy way, Daniel. In other words, make a note of this, but then go on, because what we're dealing with here is not for you now. Read on.
For the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end.
So what that's letting us know is that the words, in other words, the words that it's speaking about here, the words means the scriptures. If you make a note, the words mean the scriptures. So the words are closed. What's closed? The scriptures are closed. And then it uses the word, are closed, up and sealed. Seal in here means that there will be no explanation or understanding. Because if something is sealed, how are you going to understand what it's saying? So the scriptures are going to be sealed up and closed to the end. Now, if you don't get this, or as I say, Edom can't get this, because Edom reads this all the time and they're talking foolishness. But what it is letting us know is that when it uses the word the end, it's speaking about an age. There's an age coming that it will be tantamount to the end of time. We are in that end now, or that age now. We're in it right this very minute. Now, the transition of it took place. Remember, the other week when we were here, we did some studies on some dark sayings. It took place from 1619, for those of you that remember. And it dropped about 1969. That was the period, because it was time, times, and half a times, right? Gone? All right. So with that in mind, we see that it brought us to that period. Now, what's this? The transition now is 1970 from that. Why is that so important? because it's there that the revealing of this became open again. Read it one more time for me, verse 9 again for me, officer.
Daniel chapter 12 and verse 9. And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end.
So it's sealed to the time of the end. The time of the end is now. That's what we know it. We're now in the 2000s, so we're quite some time away from where it was back in the 70s. But what it's showing us, he began the opening up of the scriptures so that those who are his hidden ones will begin to awaken out of their sleep to know what this word really means to them. Because before, what we were doing, we were taking the book that's ours and we were throwing it away, and we explained this last night, and other nations are coming, picking it up and saying, this is our book. It's not their book. The only reason why it hasn't been our book is because we were so disappointed with it, because it was used as a trick to make us follow our slave masters. And so in their actions, they taught us how to hate it. But the Spirit of the Lord revealed itself around about this 69, 70 period. And a whole lot of things was happening, even in the space realm at that time. And the purpose behind it was to awaken us. And he did it on purpose, because whilst other things were happening in terms of space launches and all of that, he was waking up his people down here. In other words, he was doing a misdirect. Whilst everybody's looking up there of what they're putting in space, he was waking up his people down here. Because he's getting us set, because he has an appointed time for us. And if we will get ourselves together, we will realize that the days are shorter than we think. And so with that, in fact, quickly, let's go to Acts chapter 17 and verse 26. We'll come back to Daniel, but let's go to Acts chapter 17 and 26. When you have it, read, officer. Don't wait for me.
Acts chapter 17 and verse 26. And hath made of one blood all nations of men.
Stop. So it made of one blood. Who?
All nations of men.
All nations of men. Read on.
For to dwell on all the face of the earth.
Read.
And hath determined the times before appointed.
We're going to read that, Bruce, slow. Let's go. And has what?
And hath determined the times.
The times. Read.
Before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation.
There it is. Opening some things up for us there. All right. Now, we need to make some sense of this now. Go to Deuteronomy 32 and 8. Deuteronomy 32 and 8. Let's read.
Deuteronomy chapter 32 and verse 8. When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam.
So he did what?
He separated the sons of Adam.
So let's get something together in our head. We are not all together. And we are not all the same. Because that's the type of hogwash we hear all the time. We're all the same. No, we are not. Because if we were the same, how could you kill us? If we were the same, how could you castrate us? You can't kill something that's the same as you, because it would hurt you. So we're not all the same. Read it again from the top.
When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
He set the bounds of the people according to what? The number of the children of Israel. Let's go into 9.
Verse 9. For the Most High's portion is his people.
The Most High's portion is whom?
Is his people.
His people. Go on.
Jacob is the lot of his inheritance.
Glory be to his name. Is that it on that?
Yes, sir.
All right. From there, let's run to Isaiah chapter 14. Read verse 1.
Isaiah chapter 14 verse 1. For the Most High will have mercy on Jacob.
He will have mercy on whom?
On Jacob.
On Jacob. That's us. He's going to have mercy on us. We're not deserving of it, but he's going to have mercy on us. Read on.
And will yet choose Israel.
And will yet choose Yasharel. Are we done with that?
That's
In fact, I get verse 2 yet?
No, sir.
Read verse 2 and 3 for me.
Verse 2, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Most High for servants and handmaids.
Now, last night someone said to me, slavery is a bad thing. Is that correct?
Yes, right.
And here's the thing. For a moment I said yes, and then I had to retract it and said no. No, it's not a bad thing. No. Why is it not a bad thing? Because he used slavery to punish us.
That's right.
He used slavery to scourge us and to bring us back to our understanding in terms of our nationality, because our nationality is our understanding. Once you know who you are, you begin to realize why this is all happening, because then you know it's in pursuant to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 1 through to 15, and then from there through to 68. But here is the thing that we need to understand. In fact, read that latter clause again, Prophet, please.
And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Most High for servants and handmaids.
Servants and handmaidens. Now the reason why I retracted it is because if I'm going to say slavery is a bad thing, that means that I'm going against Yahushua. Because Yahushua is going to have slaves. Now you tell the average Edomite that, they're going to get upset with you. Not my Jesus. In fact, one of the officers is going to have a t-shirt made up with that. Okay? So here's... Sorry. Should have said. They get me going. All right. So let me get back to my serious mode. So here's the thing. If he's going to have slaves, that means then it is a righteous thing. Because if Yahushua is going to have slaves, it's a righteous thing, because he can't do anything that is unrighteous. Are you seeing this? Therefore, we then will have slaves. Because the right, in fact, give me the scripture. I think it's in Exodus about those who take a man as a slave. Yeah.
Exodus chapter 21 and verse 16. And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, or if he be found in his hand, he shall surely be put to death.
So then, how can you then turn around and say, well, you know, it's a wrong thing? Well, he said, if you steal a man, which many of us were stolen, and it said you stealeth him, and you found him it's been found in your hands, meaning in your possession, he shall surely be put to death. In fact, go to Jeremiah, you know the one I want, 22 and 14. Jeremiah 22 and 14, when you got it.
Jeremiah chapter 22 and verse 14.
Read.
That said, I will build me a wide house and large chambers, and cutteth him out windows, and it is sealed with cedar and painted with vermilion.
Now, you see that? He says, I'm going to build me a wide house, large chambers, cut it out, windows, in other words, windows from head to ceiling. And it's going to be out of cedar, it's going to be painted with vermilion. Now, here's the thing that I want you to see from that. How is he going to do that? Jump back to the verse before it.
Verse 13. Woe unto him that buildeth his house by unrighteousness.
See it there? So, building the house by unrighteousness. So, how do we build a house by unrighteousness? Read on, preacher.
And his chambers by wrong.
By wrong. Watch it, read.
That useth his neighbor's service.
Here it is. You're using your brother to build your house, and you use him like a slave. Read on.
Without wages.
And you're not going to pay him a dime.
That's right.
Now you wonder why they don't understand the scriptures, because the Most High is going to fog their mind. That no matter how they read it, they'll never understand it, because they have done all of these atrocities. Many people, even right now, our own Issachar brothers, and they can build a house now. And they build the house, and watch it. They get chump change for it. Meanwhile, the developer makes millions. Every time I go to these new sites, guess what? I see our brothers over there. They're laboring away and building these houses, and they're throwing them up at some serious rate. But the people who are making the monies, and when you see the developer and you see where he lives versus the builder, you want to hold on, there's a disparity here. You build a house and you still live there, and all he does is sell it, and he lives up there. That's the difference. So he says then that there is going to be a repayment, a punishment on you for what you have done, because you stole the man to build your house, and you're living in it, and by the way, but I wasn't there. I can't be blamed for my father's situation. You're living in the luxury and the benefits of it. All right, let's go back. Let's go back to Acts chapter 17 and 26. Read the latter clause of that again for me, please. And hath determined.
Acts chapter 17 and verse 26. And hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation.
And the bounds of their habitation. Again, let's go back to 2nd Ezra chapter 16 and verse 54. Let's go back there.
Second Ezra chapter 16 and verse 54. Behold, the Lord knoweth all the works of men.
So he does what?
Behold, the Lord knoweth all the works of men.
All the works of men, go ahead.
Their imaginations, their thoughts, and their hearts.
Read it one more time.
Behold.
In fact, skip up, begin from verse 53.
Verse 53. Let not the sinner say that he hath not sinned, for God shall burn coals of fire upon his head, which said before thee, Most High God, and his glory I have not sinned.
Read.
Behold, the Most High knoweth all the works of men, their imaginations, their thoughts, and their hearts.
All the imaginations, thoughts, and their hearts. That ties back in with the latter clause of Acts chapter 17 and verse 26. It says, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation. Interesting. Romans 1 and 20.
Romans chapter 1 verse 20. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen,
Read.
Being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse.
Without excuse. Read on.
Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful.
This was during the time of the law. Read it again.
Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imagination, and their foolish heart was darkened. All right, let's move forward. What I want us to do right now is go back to Obadiah chapter 1. Obadiah chapter 1, and we're going to begin at verse 3. Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 3. The pride of thine heart hath deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground?
All right, let's break this up now. The pride of thy heart, thy mind, thy spirit, has deceived thee. You allowed your thinking to make you think that you are more than what you were designed to be. Thou dwellest in the cleft of the rock. You're a caveman. You're a Neanderthal. That's what you are. You are the real Neanderthal. As pursuant to Job chapter 30 and 6. Let's hold this. Let's quickly read that. Job chapter 30 and verse 6.
Job chapter 30 and verse 6. To dwell in the cliffs of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in the rocks.
See that? To dwell in the cliffs, which now makes you understand why they have to have tall buildings to live out of and to look out over. And incidentally, by even having a building that skyscrapes over the clouds, they have broken the law of Yahweh. Because that's why he took down the Tower of Babel. Because they were breaking the law, because they were trying to make themselves gods on the earth, which, again, they've come back to do. Because remember, they said, once he tore it down, said, we'll come back anyway, and we'll build it up again with their arrogant self. And it says, in the clefts of the valleys, in caves of the earth, and in rocks. Where is... Yeah. Let's read verse 5. We didn't read it, but let's read verse 5.
Verse 5. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee... Let's stop. I misled you.
Job 30, and we're going to read verse 5.
Job chapter 30, verse 5. They were driven forth from among men.
They were what?
They were driven forth from among men.
In other words, we drove them out because we didn't want them to be among us. They were driven forth from among men. Read on.
They cried after them as after a thief.
So we called them like they were thieves. Have they not been in thievery ever since? And then we see where it says that they dwell in the clefts. But let's read verse 8.
Verse 8. They were children of fools, yea, children of base men.
Children of base men. Read.
They were viler than the earth.
They were viler than the earth. And yet this is what our people loves. Let's go back. All right, let's read. Verse 3. And it says whose habitation is high. Well, we know they live in skyscrapers. That say in his heart, his mind, who shall bring me down to the ground? That's how cocky they've become. Verse 4, officer.
Verse 4. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Most High.
Every nation that is connected to Edom has always used a star. Always. And they have always used the eagle. Even our own people, Jake, we used an eagle at one point. When our people were first the dominant race, in fact we were ruling Germany, we had an eagle, and it was a black eagle. And notice when Edom took back over, they turned the eagle white. And the eagle also had two heads, because it was representative of the two different groups. All right. But then it says, thou art exalted thyself as the eagle, and thou set thy what?
Thy nest.
Thy nest. Where did we just see that word? Come on, I gave it to you earlier on. I told you to make note of it.
That was Daniel 12 and 9.
I want you to be exact, not guess. Is it or isn't it? Habakkuk what? I warned you. I said, make a note of this word. So Habakkuk. Have you got it? Is anyone still guessing, or have they found it yet? Let's read. Woe to him that covereth an evil covetousness of the house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. So you see then, this position of nesting, it's as old as the scriptures. Officer, if you will please go online and dig up the word for me, please. Well, find the word nest first of all. Let's find that word. Let's see what it means, generally speaking, then I'll be more specific.
Nest, a structure or place made or chosen by a bird for laying eggs and sheltering its young.
All right, continue.
Definition 2, a set of similar objects of graduated sizes, made so that each smaller one fits into the next in size for storage.
All right, any more?
Verb, it means use or build a nest or fit inside a large one.
All right, now, find me the word military nest. Military nest. All right. Let's see what that says.
It says a snug retreat or refuge, resting place, home.
Read it again, read it a little bit slow. Read for me, please.
A snug retreat.
A snug retreat, go ahead.
Or refuge.
Or refuge.
Resting place, home. An assemblage of things lying or set close together as a series of boxes or trays that fit within each other.
Good, good. Now, in the military, they will have you build, some call it foxholes, some calls it a nest, because it's to protect you from being shot at by the enemy. What Edom has now done, and the Most High saw it back in the book of Obadiah, chapter 1 and 4, he said, officer, go ahead and read verse 4 again.
Verse 4, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Most High.
So he has a nest there. He's had that, by the way, since 1969. Now remember what I said, that whilst the Most High exposed them to be building this, the purpose behind it was to do a misdirect. He wanted them to be seeing all of this thing happening so that he could start to bring his people up from where they were and reveal them to this truth. It was slow in happening simply because what he wanted to do whilst he was doing this was to ensure that those of his people that he was bringing up, he was going to use them in certain ways to begin to wake up others. Now remember, what truth we had back then is not the same as now. Why? Because it was coming out. So it wasn't perfect then as it is today. We got it in portions. And the Most High is wise when he does that, because if he brought it all out, it might have been too much for us to have all at once. Babies, when things are swallowed too quickly, gives them colic. So with us, he didn't want to put us in a calyptic state. He wanted for us only to take it gradually and to build from there. And he used men of God back then. Sadly, even some of those men of God were ridiculed. Because they said, where do you come with all of this new doctrine? It wasn't new doctrine. It was revelation. It was finally someone had the nerve to listen to the Most High and pull back the sheet and see what is really there. So the military nest, that was set up from the beginning as a distraction, because once Edom is not looking at us, and believe me, back then they were looking at us because that was during the Black Power period. You know, Martin Luther King was assassinated, you know, a year or so before. So you see, all these things were happening. And that's why when I'm insulted when someone turns around and says, hold on, are you teaching history or teaching Bible? You dummy. Don't you know what this book is? It is a history book. But it's our history book. And that's why we have to embrace it. You know how people like to use the word history all the time as if they're insulting? So then, when we see all of this, we begin to understand a couple of things that's at play. In verse 3 of Obadiah chapter 1, it lets us know whose habitation is high places. Who will bring me down, was his boastful saying. Who is ordered, who has self-ordered himself to be exalted above men. Who has set his nest among the stars. And today we're right back to the situation where he's going into what's called a, what did we call it earlier on? A military what? Nest. Military nest. And Trump is setting up his so-called military space force. Isn't that heavy? All right, let's move ahead. Go with me please to the book of Revelations 12 and 7. Let's go back there. Let's reread that to set the paces where we're going.
Revelations chapter 12 and verse 7. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon.
Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. Go ahead.
And the dragon fought and his angels.
The dragon fought and his angels. All right. Hold that. Run back to Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 7. And then also have Psalms 83 and 5. I want to make this as crystal clear as I can this morning. Obadiah chapter 1 and 7.
Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him.
Okay. See that? All right, go back now before we read Psalms. Go back and read what you read originally in Revelations chapter 12 and verse 7.
Revelations chapter 12 and verse 7. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels.
And his angels, all right, go ahead. Back to Psalms 83 and 5.
Psalms chapter 83 and verse 5. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee.
See that? So this is the angels with the dragon. Go back and read Revelation chapter 12 and 7 again.
Revelations chapter 12 and verse 7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels.
See, the dragon fought and his angels. His angels are those that are in confederacy with him. Let's read verse 8.
Revelation chapter 12 and verse 8. And prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven.
Read on.
And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil.
Called who?
The devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world.
Which deceiveth the whole world. Read on.
He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out within him.
Cast out with him. Okay, from there, let's go to Isaiah 14 and 9. Isaiah 14 and 9.
Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 9. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at the coming. It stirred up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations.
All right, see that? let's tie that in with 2 Ezra 14 and 3.
2 Ezra chapter 14 and verse 3. Then said he unto me, In the bush I did manifestly reveal myself unto Moses, and talk with him when my people served in Egypt.
Read on.
And I sent him and led my people out of Egypt and brought him up to the mount of Sinai, where I held him by me a long season, and told him many wondrous things, and showed him the secrets of the times and the end, and commanded him, saying, These words shalt thou declare, and these shalt thou hide.
In other words, again, you see what it's showing us. Some things had to be revealed and some things had to be hidden because the time was not right. The time came about right back in the 1970s, coming to where we are today. Read it again, the last verse.
St. Ezra chapter 14 and verse 6.
Read 5 and 6. Read 5 and 6.
Verse 5. And told him many wondrous things, and showed him the secrets of the times.
The secrets of the times. So back then, Moses knew those things, right? Ezra knew those things, right? Now here's what I want you to understand, and this is why I don't want you to miss it, because I said it with the hope that someone would have said, but there was no moment. Here it is. These individuals, the Moses and the Ezra's, they came back because what they could not mention back then in the 70s, they were given permission to come back now, and the Lord would use them and reveal it to them so that this would come to us now. Are you seeing it? The same with Paul. Paul is back now too. Why? Because these things that he hushed them from saying, he brought them back. So now they're living in this life. They don't know who they were previously, but they're teaching it now because the Most High entrusted them with it before. Now he's bringing them back, opening up their memory and letting them begin to bring this teaching, and those who are of the elect hear it, they say yes. But not everybody's going to say yes because they're not of the elect. Are you with me so far?
Yes,
so when we read the latter clause again, because we read verse 5, now let's read verse 6. It said, These words
shalt thou declare, and these shalt thou hide.
See, there are some to declare, which was back then he had to declare, but the other part of it he had to hide it because the Most High was going to bring him back again a few thousand years later and say, all right, now you're back. Now he doesn't know who he is because there's no remembrance, but the Spirit of the Lord begins to drop on him, and then it starts to come to his memory, and he begins to say these things, and he doesn't know why or how he's saying, but the Spirit is on him. Are you seeing this, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes.
Now, let me see, in that same 2 Ezra chapter 14, for the world, I thought. Yeah, let's read. Jump down to verse 10, please.
Verse 10. For the word hath lost its youth, and the time began to wax old.
So it went from its beginning stages to now where it's getting into an older stage. Read.
For the world is divided into 12 parts.
The world is what?
Divided into 12 parts.
Divided into 12 parts. Go ahead.
And the 10 parts of it are gone already, and half of a 10th part.
All right, jump down to verse 14.
Verse 14. Let go from the mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, put off now the weak nature.
Put off now the weak nature. Jump down to verse 19. Because of time, I would normally take you through it all, but I just want to get to the point. Go ahead.
Then answered I before thee, and said, Behold, Lord, I will go, and thou hast commanded me, and reprove the people which are present.
See? So I will go. What you told me to say now, I'm going to say now and reprove the people. When did he say we would do that? Which are what?
Present.
Present. But, go ahead.
But they that shall be born afterward.
There it is. They that going to come after us. Who are that they? You, me, others. Read.
Who shall admonish them? Thus the world is set in darkness, and they that dwell therein are without light.
There it is. That's a time that we found ourselves in. Because the Bible says that there will be darkness and gross darkness. In other words, there will be deep ignorance. Knowledge of who we were will be gone from us. And so we have to be awoken. All right. From here, because of time again. Go back to Isaiah 57. There's something there. I can't know what it is right now. But Isaiah 57. No, 47. 47. 47. 47. 47. It's 47. I don't know. It's I'll not meet thee as a man.
Oh, yeah, that's 3. 47 and 3.
47 and 3. Very good. All right. Start from 1. Thank you, sir.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon.
That's where we have been. We have been in the dust. We are still the tail. We're not the head. Read on.
Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate.
See, we're not going to be tender and delicate. Means we've been wooed, we've been looked after, we've been made to be beautiful. That's why it says, awake, awake, Hosanna, put on our beautiful garments. We're not in that stage no longer. Read.
Take the millstones and grind meal. Uncover thy locks.
I'm sorry. So it says, uncover thy locks. And this is where our people, we've been so inculcated into this this saying that we keep saying, we got nappy head. The Bible tells us we have locks. We have locks in our hair. Not nappy, not whatever dumb statement they make. We're not that. We are not that person. And we say it so freely. It tells us, uncover thy locks. Read, sir.
Make bare the leg, uncover the thigh. Pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered.
In other words, you're going to be revealed, exposed. What was covering you, what word was covering you, won't cover you anymore. Read.
Yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man.
So Yahweh says, when I come, I'm coming, and I'm going to take vengeance, and I'm not going to meet you as a man. You, in other words, you're in trouble. Let's go to 2nd Ezra. Let's go back to 2nd Ezra chapter 6. I want to read something there. I want to read it again. I just want to make sure that forgive me for being overly redundant. It's just I want to make sure you get this. 2nd Ezra chapter 14 and 6. Let's read 6 and 7.
2nd Ezra chapter 14 and verse 6. These words thou shalt declare, and these shalt thou hide. And now I say unto thee, that thou lay up in thy heart the signs that I have showed.
The what?
The signs that I have showed.
Read.
And the dreams that thou hast seen, and the interpretations which thou hast heard.
See? All right. From here, don't lose a bit. We're going to come back and read it again just to make sure we get it right. Go to Romans chapter 15 and 4.
Romans chapter 15 and verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
Read it one more time.
For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for
what?
Were written for our learning.
For our learning. Read.
That we through patience.
Through patience. In other words, you have to remain patient. Patience for us is part of our ministry. Hold that. Go to Revelation chapter 10 and 13. 13 and 10. Yeah, the other way around. Thank you. You know what I mean.
Revelation chapter 13 and verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity.
Read.
He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
See, that's our ministry. Patience and faith. In other words, that's why when people tell me, well, you shouldn't be looking forward to putting people in captivity and slaughtering people. Read it again. Because it's a ministry. You've been called to do this. And believe me, if you can't do it, you're not going to be in the number. Let me make that absolutely unequivocally clear. That if you think, oh, I can't kill anyone, that's all right. The Most High will kill you. And you're just going to come back like everybody else. But you just don't have what it takes. You see, the days of getting teaching where we feel good and we jump around and run and sweat and knock chairs over, those days are over. You see, when a war is coming, what have you got to do? You have to prepare yourself. You have to make sure, the Bible says, gird up the loins of your mind. And this is not the time to feel good. This is the time to get your mind together and your spirit together. So for those of you who are saying, oh, well, I prefer the days when we're back at church running up. Well, see, those days were good. I remember them too. But you know what? They're not going to help you make it or to be saved. And the word saved is that I'm trying to emphasize here. Because you've got to endure to the end for you to be saved. Go back and read what we just read.
Revelation chapter 13 and verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience.
Here is. Notice. Here is. See that word? Here is in the English language means this is. Go on.
Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
This is what we are patiently waiting for. And we are faithful to the end to see this happen. Now go back and read, if you please, Romans chapter 15 and 4, if you please.
Romans chapter 15 and verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime.
It was written aforetime, read.
Were written for our learning.
So it's written before for us so that we could learn from it, read.
That we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope.
We might have hope. Go to Isaiah chapter 34 and 16. Now, because we're dealing with, remember it says this, for whatsoever thing were written aforetime were written for our learning, right? That's what it says, right? Con? All right, now let's go and read 34 and 16.
Isaiah chapter 34 and verse 16. Seek ye out of the book of the Most High.
See that? Seek ye out of the book of the Most High and do what?
And read.
And read. So it was written beforehand, and it was written for us, and now it's telling us, seek ye out of the book of the Most High and read. Watch it. Read now.
No one of these shall fail.
None of these things that what we're going to read is going to fail us. Read.
None shall want her mate.
Read.
For my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath gathered them.
It had what?
Gathered them.
Gathered them. Now I hope that makes it crystal clear to us, right? Now let's go back and read 2nd Ezra chapter 14 and read verse 9 through to verse 10.
2nd Ezra chapter 14 and verse 9. For thou shalt be taken away from all, and from henceforth thou shalt remain with my son, and with such as be like thee until the times be ended.
To the times of the end. Remember, we were dealing with this word end, right? Which means the latter days. We are in the latter days. Remember, when Yahushua was here, it was the latter days. Then, we now in the, remember, there is something called the beginning of times, the middle of times, and the end of times. So, it's the same times, it's just that there are 3 different quadrants to it. The beginning, the middle, the end. We are not at the beginning of time, we're not at the middle of time, we're at the end of it now. Read it again, sir.
For thou shalt be taken away from all, and from henceforth thou shalt remain with my son, and with such as be like thee, until the times be ended. For the world has lost its youth, and the times begin to wax old.
There it is. So it's showing us what age we are in. All right, let's go back to Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 5. Obadiah 1 and verse 5.
Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 5. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If the grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes?
Now you see the difference here? The grape gatherers have enough sense to know we have to leave some things. In other words, there has to be, anytime there's a gleaning, anytime there's something that's left behind, it's almost like a tithe, so to speak. It's a leaving behind. Because a tithe has a purpose, because it's to provide for others. But here, it lets us know that this nation is so despicable that when they take, they don't want to leave a grain. They want to take absolutely everything. Read on, sir. 6.
How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee.
See that? So it's letting us know his confederacy has been around a long time. And I guess what I'm trying to get you to see here is that this confederacy went back beyond our frame of understanding. It goes back to a time when many of us were still in captivity, and some of us were separated, and some of us were lost. But go on.
And prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him.
Read.
Shall I not in that day, saith the Most High, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau? And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter.
Every one of them may be cut off by slaughter. All right. Before we go to Isaiah 14, as we would normally do for this, and read 21, I want to go back over it again from verse 8. Shall I not in that day, says the Most High, even destroy the wise men out of Edom? Edom has some wise men. How do we know this? Malachi chapter 1. And let's kick that off. Malachi chapter 1. And let's begin at verse 4.
Malachi chapter 1 and verse 4. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places.
So they knew that they would return and rebuild the desolate places. Hold that for a quick moment. Go to Romans 9 and 13 and then come back here.
Romans chapter 9 and verse 13. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated.
All right, let's come back.
Malachi chapter 1 and verse 4. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Most High of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Most High hath indignation forever.
Forever. Read on.
And your eyes shall see, and ye shall say, the Most High will be magnified from the border of Israel.
Read.
A son honoreth his father, and a servant his master. If then I be a father, where is mine honor? And if I be a master, where is my fear? Saith the Most High of hosts unto you, O priests that despise my name. And ye say, wherein have we despised thy name?
Read.
Ye offer polluted bread upon mine altar, and ye say, wherein have we polluted thee? And that ye say, the table of the Most High is contemptible.
All right, we'll stop there. So we see then when we have mixed up the offering unto the Most High God. We've mixed it up. In Malachi, did we read verse 6? Did we read it? We did.
1 and 6, yes, sir.
We did, okay. Now, go back to Daniel. Daniel chapter 12. And we're going to read verse 9 and come forward.
Daniel chapter 12 and verse 9. And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end.
The words are closed up and sealed for the time of the end. Read on.
Many shall be purified and made white and tried.
All right. Now let's deal with that word, made white. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen? Before I answer that, what does that mean?
Made clean. Made clean.
So clean is white.
No, just
Many shall be purified and made white.
Is it the robes and that's referenced? I'm not sure what the scripture is. Is it, of course, this is Israelite being. They're going to go through the trial and the fire and be purified. Is it Revelation?
Yeah. Are anyone got a precept for that then? All right, let me, Proverbs chapter 16 and 4.
Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 4. The Most High hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil.
So it's made the wicked even for the day of evil. In fact, begin at verse, let's go, begin at verse 1 and come down.
Proverbs chapter 16 and verse 1. The preparations of the heart in man, and the answer of the tongue is from the Most High. All the ways of a man are clean in his own eyes.
That's it.
But the Most High weigheth the spirits. Commit thy works unto thee, unto the Most High, and thy thoughts shall be established.
Read on.
The Most High hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil.
Even the wicked for the day of evil. Amen. All right, so let's go back. Let's read that again. Let's see if we can get a even better understanding. So it says, many shall be purified and made clean and tried, but the wicked shall do what?
Wickedly.
Do wickedly, and
none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand.
They shall understand. And that's why back in Proverbs chapter 16 and 4 it says, the Lord hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. So those who will do wickedly is because he has made them for that. Got that, ladies and gentlemen?
yes, sir.
All right. So from here, I'm getting ready to wind down. So let's read on. Let's read verse 11.
Verse 11, and from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days.
1,290 days, and I explained to you how to do all of that. 1,290 days is equivalent of what? All right, I'm not going to. We'll leave that for another time because obviously it's going to take up some time. But what I want you to see is that when we read the scriptures here, in fact, let's go back and read Malachi chapter 1 and 4. Let's read that, put that in perspective, and then we'll come back to Daniel. Then we'll get ready to close out.
Malachi chapter 1 and verse 4. Whereas Edom said, we are impoverished, but we will return and build a desolate place.
Now, when it says we will return and build the desolate place, remember, when did they start to return? Let's see if we can get some of you who are remembering. It's important that you know this, because again, for those who would come want to challenge us and say, well, you know, what's history got to do? It has everything to do with it, because it lets you know when you were doing what you were doing and how you got out of what you were doing. So, when did that happen? Doing what? The Renaissance, right. So the Renaissance period happened, what type of timeline? Give me a date, please. What type of date are we looking at there? Because we ruled Europe for 1,000 years. Right, and Russia 800 years. So, what type of timeline?
Like 800.
No. Remember what I said, don't guess.
Right.
Try to give it an exact.
I'm sorry, thinking out loud.
Come on, brothers.
That's 1300 to 1600.
Very good. Very good. So the latter part of the 1300s, the latter part of the 1300s was when we were coming out of power and they were coming into power, and then they got into power during the latter part of the 1300s into the 1400s, and from that point on all the way through to now they have been in power. So it's important that you remember those dates. Keep that in mind. Latter part 1300s, when we were finishing, they were coming in. That is why, just to make it real plain, so you get this, and please don't misunderstand this part, what I'm about to say. Even when we entered into World War I, some of our people in Europe were still in power, but it was being taken away from them. And that's a whole nother teaching in and of itself, because to explain that, then you'd understand why when the League of Nations came about, some of our people were not there, because some of our people were still in Italy, and we still ruled over certain province before Italy became Italy, as opposed to Rome, Florence, Venice, etc., because they're all states unto themselves, you know, from the 1400s through. And so they were getting rid of our people, and even in Germany there was north and south. So that's not even a big deal. But here's and the war situation, that brings about a whole nother understanding. But here's the thing. Some of our people were still ruling over up in the north parts of Germany. That's why the castles, you see, they had many of our insignias and our statues and shields and family crests. It's all there. But those are not the things they teach you in school, because they're not going to do that, because it would make the young ones believe, hold on, you come from some form of aristocracy. Yes. One of the officers was speaking to some young men on yesterday, and it was wonderful to see knowledge being transferred to them. And when they were told that you are of royal aristocracy, they were like, really? Yes. You're of royal blood. All our people are. The 12 tribes, all of them are.
That's right.
And then we went to the other end of the scale, where we're dealing with was it Honduras? What was he from?
El Salvador.
El Salvador. And here's this man now. He doesn't even, I mean, he was willing, but he's so trapped into wanting the so-called Edomite nation to be a part of them that he let it go. I mean, he wasn't offensive or anything. I mean, he listened and he was very intrigued. But Edom has a stronghold.
Yes.
That's a real, Edom and Christianity are strong drugs.
That's right.
They're like a molly.
Yes.
They'll get you high. So anyway, let's go to Daniel chapter 12 and 10. Let's read that one more time, and then we'll get ready to just read it.
Daniel chapter 12 and verse 10. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand.
Now, the wise shall understand, and that is us. We are the wise, because the scripture is making us wise. And we're becoming wise because we're realizing that the chemtrails, the GMOs, this nation that has made lawful man to become woman and woman to become man and man to marry man and woman to marry woman, it's gone off. It is the modern day Babylon for real.
Yes.
And all the other nations are looking and they're following suit. Let's go to last two scriptures. Let's go to Romans chapter 11 and 7. Romans 11 and 7. When you're there, let's read.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 7. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it.
See? So it's the election. Hold that quickly. Run to Zechariah chapter 13 and 8. I know I said two scriptures, but that's just coming to my mind. Go ahead.
Zechariah chapter 13 and verse 8. And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Most High, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein.
So our people are going to be destroyed. Only one part that the Most High is interested in. That's all he's interested in. Now you'll say, but is he not being unkind? No. Because much of the work that's going to bring our people into the kingdom is going to be done by the elect. And much of the work that's going to be done is going to come from the 144. Because the 144 are the ones who are going to tirelessly keep doing what they're doing. That's why these brothers who are hanging with me, I encourage them. Because if they're going to be part of the 144, and I pray that they are, and I pray that I am, it's because of the tirelessness you put into this. But you have to also be careful because you can be dissuaded. Read Romans chapter 11 and 7 again for me.
Romans chapter 11 verse 7. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded.
The rest were blinded. That means not everybody is going to see it. That's why the rest who are blinded, they're the ones that are going to be destroyed. They're going to be completely taken out. Whilst we're there, let's read on.
According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, unto this day. And David said, Let their table be made a snare and a trap, a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them.
See that? So they're going to become very heavy in their hearing, very heavy in their eyes. They won't want to hear what you're telling them. And you'll find some people, the moment you start bringing this up to them, they're going to fall asleep on you. Because they're not part of the number. And no matter what you do, you can't make them be part of that number. You can't make them that. Because they're going to have a struggle with it. All right? Read on.
Let their eyes be darkened.
Let their eyes be darkened.
That they may not see, and bow down their back always.
Now, the reason why I wanted to read, especially the last part, is because, and read 10 again if you don't mind.
Let their eyes be darkened, that they may not see.
May what?
That they may not see.
Read.
And bow down their back always.
Now, it's letting you know the reasons why the others can't see this or get this. Why? Why do you think that is? Why do you think others don't get this? You get it, but others won't. But why do you think that is, ladies and gentlemen? The answer is right there in verse 10. It uses the word let.
Yeah, their eyes are darkened.
To let means someone has the ability to have an influence over someone. So, the Most High ordered it. So the reasons why they don't see it is because He did it. Read it again, officer.
Let their eyes be darkened that they...
See, now the reason why one of the things you have to do is try to remember all of the scriptures. Remember all the scriptures and remember what it says. Case in point, go to Genesis chapter 1. Keep your finger there, just as a quick exercise. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 11.
Genesis chapter 1 and verse 11. And God said, let the earth...
Stop. Read it again.
And God said, let the earth bring forth grass.
See that? And God said, let the earth. Jump to 14.
Verse 14. And God said, let there be light.
See? Let. Jump down to 15.
Verse 15. And let them be for lights.
See that? Jump to 20.
Verse 20. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly.
Jump to 24.
Verse 24. And God said, let the earth.
See? Jump to 26.
And verse 26. And God said, let us make man in our image.
Let's go back now to where we were.
Romans chapter 11 and verse 10.
Read.
Let their eyes be darkened.
See that? So now it gives you a clue as to who's saying what and why he's saying what he's saying. And that's why you have to try to hold the scriptures in your memory. I know it's difficult, believe me, I have a hard time trying to remember the scriptures after a while because you're holding so much information in your head. But what I'm hoping to appeal to those of you who are younger, fresher, and got your stuff together, that you become quick and more astute with this. And you practice it now, you'll be unstoppable in the times when you need the refreshing of this word to bring down some demons. So read it to its end.
Verse 10. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see and bow down their back always.
Right. Last scripture, Daniel. I keep saying last, but you know what I mean. Daniel 12 and 3. I know we've read it, but let's... Go ahead.
Daniel chapter 12 and verse 3. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever.
See, that is your job. It says, read it again slowly for me, please.
And they that be wise,
shall
shine as the brightness of the firmament.
In other words, that you will be illuminated. Read on.
And they that turn many to righteousness.
Your job is to turn our people to righteousness. Read.
As the stars forever and ever.
So that they will shine forever and ever, which is the destiny of all of Israel. Go to, I know I said it was long, but the precepts, Psalms 104, 104, and 2.
Psalms chapter 104 and verse 2. Who covers thyself with light as with a garment, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain.
See that? Hallelujah. All right. Let me stop there. Any questions from anyone before we go any further? Or before we end, of course, if we're not going any further before we end. Yes, ma'am.
I thought about when you were talking about the nest, how some birds make their nest low.
Yes.
And I saw a news report on, I believe it was NBC the other morning, and they were talking about those places where the senators and the different people in Congress will go if there is a nuclear attack.
Yes.
And they reveal that for the public to see for the first time.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I thought when I saw that story online, I said that's
good point. Good point. That kind of missed my mind. Because there are nests of also protection, where those that they wish to protect, which is their elite, they will go and they will hide.
They
use the term. What's the term that use? It's called. It's a bunker, but they have a name for it. What was it called? It's an acronym. Something underground. Blah 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 blah.
A lot of it in Nebraska, that place like that.
There's an actual name for it. I don't know if it's called. It's got a funny name like dump or something like that, but it means underground or subterranean, whatever it is. But they actually have cities that they've actually built under the earth for places for people like the presidencies and all of those individuals. And by the way, when the war comes, you know what the first thing they do? They get all of the literary men, the top elite literary men, the top elite science physicists, they get all of them, along with the presidents and vice president, and they take them to these underground bunkers. And they lock them up down there. And it's said that they can live down there 5 years. 5 years, you know. And by the way, they have railway systems underneath there as well. Roads. That blows up. That astonishes me. It really does. I mean, you can live under the ground. That means it's going to be like a mall down there, you know.
Well, Pastor, that's why I said 600, 800.
Did you? I'm sorry. So, did you find it for me?
No, sir, I haven't found it.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
The Renaissance, why I said and that day they did say the majority did, because the Renaissance, when the Moors came in there, and in the 1400s, they learned a lot, but that's when we was going out of power.
Exactly. Well, remember, the Moors left the archetype for the rest of Europe to be built on. In other words, it's like a man leaves his home, and when somebody else goes into his home, he sees plans of what the man had for what he was going to do to his home and other things. And all that wretched man does, he picks up and says, okay, I'm going to do this. That's what Edom did with our plans.
So it really,
that's why they took our, remember, we had street lamps.
That's right.
That had never been seen before. But which school has ever taught our children, you see the street lamps that we are so used to having?
Right.
Do you know who invented that?
Right.
Some people call Moors. The word Moor just simply means black. So I don't want people to start saying it means someone is Muslim. It has nothing to do with Muslim. Some of them were Muslim, but I can prove to you that the Moors were us. All right. Did I see a hand over there? Did you have your hand up, Elizabeth? Or? Ah, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I saw your hand, and then our brother jumped in. So, all right. Any other questions? Doomsday bunkers in Texas.
They even have them for sale.
And they got them for sale. Blow that one up there, that bunker one there that you got. Yes. Now look at this. So when you see these brothers having these acres of land, they've got all these things set up underneath there.
Oh yeah, it was on television, yeah.
And we're talking about just an individual, as opposed to those who are high officials. And now, by the way, just so that you understand, now you can be aware why the Most High said he's going to possess the elites. And you know why he's going to possess the elites? Because they're going to be hidden away in their underground bunkers. And so when he comes, he's going to capture them because they're going to still be alive and fresh anyway.
And they've held them in places that isolate because they know that they're going to get all the big cities. So they're bunkers like a president.
But they've got them in mountains and places like that. And by the way, just so that you know this, these bunkers have been built since the late 18th century. So in case you think this is a new initiative, no, that's been going on since the late 18th centuries. All right. All right. To those of you online, again, let me thank you for for logging in and to our channel and listening to our teaching. We want you to know that we're coming to a city near you. So if you don't have a school there and you would like us to come, please do not hesitate but to send us an email. You can put something in the comment section and one of our individuals will take the information and get back in touch with you. We want you to also to be aware that we have teaching on the conference calls on Thursday, and you're quite welcome to come in on that. Let me give you the information whilst I have you at hand. The information is, the conference call number is 641-715-0632. Again, 641-715-0632. And the access code to come in on the teaching is 920054. Again, that is 920054, and that is on Thursdays from 7 until 8:30. You're welcome to pass it on to your friends and family. And for those of you that, if you happen to be in the Houston area and you can make it down to Sugarland where we are located, you can come to 722 Bonaventura Way, Sugarland, Texas. We are at the Hilton Garden Inn on that location. Again, we bid you shalom, a blessed Sabbath, and we will see you again in the not too distant future. Shalom.